Hey you, welcome to Home to Me, a podcast where we replace perfection with personality and we realize that it is so much fun. Spoiler alert for today's episode, fuck the rules. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Home to Me. The theme that we're going to work in today is what are the rules that you learned in your life? What does the map look like that you were given when you were growing up for how to live the rest of your life? And I'm going to challenge us all to sit a little bit with those rules and to figure out which one of those rules we still like, which ones still serve us, which ones we still agree with, and to identify the ones that are not working for us anymore, that are actually causing a little bit more struggles than they are helping us. Okay? So this theme comes up often in my work and also has been a big part of my life. There have been a lot of times where I have noticed that I live according to one set of rules, or I automatically interpret a situation in one way, and that I don't actually like that way and I would like to change it. And I think a big part of the self-trust journey was also learning and trusting about myself that I have the strength to do something new that I like, that I prefer, and also sit with the consequences of making that change. Some clarity on what I mean by rules is basically things that we did or think or feel or interpret a certain way in order to keep us safe. So we all grew up in one place or another. And chances are, in that place, there were adults taking care of us. And those adults came with a set of expectations and rules and ways that they interpreted the world and that they thought everybody should live. These rules usually we learn as little kids because we understand that in order to stay safe, in order to belong, in order to be connected to our caregivers, in order for us to get attention and care, there are certain ways that we need to show up. Okay? From when we're very little, we understand that there are certain ways that our family or our caregivers or our place that we're growing up works, and we learn how to behave to stay connected to that place. But as we grow up, sometimes those rules are no longer necessary. And actually us trying to adhere to them still so strictly is what causes us a lot of internal struggles and maybe even relationship struggles. These rules are designed not just to keep us safe necessarily in our families of origin, but also to keep us safe in society, in our community, in our culture, and in our relationships. I thought about some examples of common rules that either from work or from my own life or from just friendships, whatever, that I've recognized, especially here in America. One of them is be strong, don't cry. Or more popular, boys shouldn't cry. That I feel like is a rule that a lot of us grew up with. This rule is the one we're going to focus on today. What you achieve is more important than the effort you put in or the enjoyment that you get out of it. So achieve, produce, never rest. That kind of rule. Be quiet / polite when you're with somebody older, no matter who they are. Don't take up too much space with your feelings. Don't be too much. Resting is lazy. That's another rule I hear often. Resting is lazy. Another big one that also was applicable, I think, a lot in my friendships growing up. You can't change your mind. Once you commit to something, that's it. I asked my husband actually for some examples of rules that he had growing up. And he didn't say this one, but I know it's true. It's playing golf is selfish. He learned that in his family and for sure brings it into our home. It's so hilarious to me because despite 14 years together, despite me being his number one advocate to go play golf, because golf means 5 hours to myself where I can do whatever the fuck I want. It's wonderful. for him, golf is like, oh no, I'm being selfish. So instead of coming to me when he wants to play golf, which is literally probably every weekend, and saying, hey, I want to go play golf, or there's this tea time, do we have any plans? I think I'm gonna go play golf, which is what I would be fine with. Golf is literally his only thing. He's obsessed with it. I don't have a husband that wants to go out and party and drink and do 1,000 things. He literally has this one thing. And so I'm always like, yes, go do it. Like, it's your one thing. Absolutely. Why am I complaining about my husband who doesn't want to go play golf? I feel like there's a lot of people out there right now that are like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you complaining about a partner that doesn't want to go play golf? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. I'm gonna think about that. Anyway, regardless, as of right now, it really doesn't bother me. But when he wants to go play golf, he'll be like, what do we have planned for this weekend? Oh, okay. Yeah, so we have to do that, and then we have to do, okay, yeah. And you saw your friends last weekend, right? Yeah. Have you seen this friend lately? Okay. Do you have any plans with them? No? Okay. And I guess like you know, I did watch the kid the other day. You went to get your nails done, right? He thinks he's like a Jedi mind master when it comes to this golf conversation, because he'll be like, oh, if I can make her think that I deserve to go play golf, then she will be more likely to say yes. Or if I can explain to her or somehow reverse psychology her into thinking that me going to play golf is a great idea, then I can go play golf. When meanwhile, he can just go play golf. Anyway, here's some more rules. What your parents say is law, no arguments. Here are some from my house. Oh my goodness. You have to greet dad at the door when he comes home. That one was a very important one. And actually, the first time my mom came to visit us in America, my husband got home from work one day and her and I were sitting on the couch. I think we were drinking wine and just chatting. And he came home and she just looked at me like wide-eyed. He went to put his stuff down and he came to say hi. And then he was like, what are you guys drinking? And we're like, wine. And he was like, oh, nice. Is there some left? And I was like, yes. I think he got a beer or something. And he came to sit on the couch. And she just kept looking at me like with wide eyes. And I was like, what's up? My mom listens to this. Mom, do you remember this? Anyway, so she's like, I wanted to tell you to go get up and say hi to him. And I was like, what? But then I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense, because when I was growing up, that's what we had to do. Like everybody, when my dad got home, if you were home, you had to get up if you heard him from wherever you were, get up and go say hi to him. And he would get annoyed if we didn't do that. And so instantly, the second my husband got home, she expected me to get up and be like, hi babe, how's your day? Obviously, that's not a rule in my house, so I'm not going to do that. And she was just like, I was nervous for a second. She was actually nervous, which makes so much sense. But do you see how we have these rules to keep us safe? But sometimes, and I want to say oftentimes, we don't make these fucking rules. So yeah, let's live by them when we're in our homes and we have to. That's fine. But let's also think about them when we're adults and be like, do we even like this? Do we even agree with this rule? There was another one too. In my house growing up, my dad had a spot on the couch where he sat. That's it. And that was his spot. And if you were sitting in that spot, like kind of like Sheldon Cooper, if you were sitting in that spot, when he got into the lounge, you get up and you move. And so again, when my mom was visiting us, my husband came into the TV room. She was like, where do you sit, Mark? And he was like, I just sit wherever there's a space to sit. What do you mean? And I giggled to myself because I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, because my dad has a spot and you move if you're on that spot. And she was ready to move. Oh my gosh. And another big one is the rules that I see from couples or whatever your relationship looks like with intimacy. Like, for example, we need to have sex X amount of times a week / month for us to be in a healthy relationship. Or any intimate interactions need to end in orgasm to be successful. I think those are two of the most common ones I hear couples come in with, where they've built their sex lives around these rules that are really difficult, like with life and biology and aging and different whatever. Like, those are hard rules to maintain. And if you live by them that strictly, they're going to cause you some struggle, some stress, right? And they're so unnecessary because neither of those things are true. So these rules can come from different places, right? They can come from family dynamics. They can come from cultural or religious expectations. They can come from gender roles. They can come from societal expectations. And they're not inherently good or bad, but they are worth a little revisit especially as you get older, especially when you're an adult. So maybe as we're talking, you're already recognizing some of these things that could be relevant in your life. One of the things that could happen is burnout. Always overextending yourself, always trying to adhere by these specific rules, especially if nobody cares and nobody's putting those rules or expectations on you, can be exhausting. Because not only are you doing something that maybe naturally doesn't occur to you or doesn't feel important to you, but you're also not experiencing any type of recognition or gratitude because the rules that you're living by are not important to other people either. For example, if I kept jumping up every time my husband came home from work to go say hi, he might like it. I don't know. But I don't think he would particularly give a shit. So I don't think he's going to be like, wow, thank you for getting up every time I come home. It really means a lot to me. I think eventually I might be like, holy shit, sometimes I'm in the middle of working and I don't want to get up and come say hi to you. Like sometimes I'm in the bathroom. I don't want to sit in the bathroom and be anxious because you just came home and I'm not going to go greet you. And I would start to get kind of burnt out by doing this much effort and not getting any recognition. Meanwhile, my husband didn't make that rule either. What the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? I think this also leads into the next point, which is resentment. And I think a lot of people come into therapy, they say anger and resentment like it's the same family. But I don't think that's true. Resentment is more in the family of like jealousy and envy. Resentment is kind of like, I have a need that's not being met, and I can see that there are other people around me who are having their needs met. That's usually where resentment comes from. So more than anger, it's kind of like envy. It's kind of like, I want something that you're getting and I'm not getting. And I think that's important for us to recognize, because resentment is usually a very good cue that there is some kind of rule we're living by that we don't like, that doesn't work for us. And I think for a lot of us, that rule is sometimes something like, be quiet, make yourself small, don't complain, don't be too much. Because while we're busy suppressing all of our emotions, we tend to find partners and friends who don't have a problem speaking up about how they feel, or asking for what they need, or being loud about what they think. And initially, that could be so attractive to us to have a partner that's so free with what they want and asking for it and demanding it and not being ashamed or shy to ask for it. But eventually, we can start getting resentful if this person is getting everything they want and we're not. And I don't know if we always have the understanding that sometimes, yes, we're with a partner who just isn't self-aware and isn't treating us well, but sometimes we are making that situation for ourselves. Sometimes there's a rule we're adhering to that nobody expected of us. And so that's why I also think it's important for us to revisit these rules and see, do I even like this rule? Do I like the rule that I have to be quiet and not too much? Or do I kind of like saying how I feel? Because it's your rule. You can do it. Sure, there are consequences, which I think we can talk about, because if you want to live your life according to different expectations or different values, it can be really intimidating to have to change the rules. But I also do think, and this was in the podcast a few weeks ago, that there's something to be said for learning how to be uncomfortable, learning how to tolerate different opinions about these rules. You can still have relationships with people that you disagree with, right? Like that's okay to do. Sometimes uncomfortable, yes, but worth it if you love that person and if you want them in your life. So I wonder if you can think a little bit about what's a rule in your life that you grew up with, that maybe as we were talking, you were like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's a rule I live with and I really don't like it. I also think, on a deeper note, sometimes unlearning some rules that we feel like don't work for us can come with a sense of grief. Kind of like, who am I if I'm not that? So at the same time as it can be freeing to release yourself from these rules and expectations, it can also feel kind of scary to now have to learn, okay, who am I actually? And not just that, but when I am myself, how do I fit back into my old environment? If you want to talk more about that, please let me know. We can absolutely do that. So how do we unlearn these rules, right? That's the big question. What does it look like to try something new? And I will tell you, it's messy. It's not linear at all. It can look like learning to set boundaries when you don't like the way that something is working. And in next week's episode, we're going to talk a lot about boundaries. So stay tuned. For me, it looked kind of like redefining success, because I recognized, like I said earlier from that rule, that there was definitely a very strong, important rule in my family, which was that achievement is the most important thing. You have to be smart. You have to be fantastic at everything you do. And almost an understanding or a belief that you have to be naturally that. There was no focus ever on the effort it would take to get great or to be good. That did not matter. It only mattered that you were good. And I think what that left me with was that if I'm not naturally good at something, that means I'm not clever, or that means that I'm not good. It took me into adulthood to realize that it's okay that I have to work hard at stuff. That doesn't mean that I'm not supposed to do it. That doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It means that I care and I like working hard. But it's interesting how I had to teach myself that. I had to learn that rule myself, because that is definitely not something that was communicated to me as a child. And it left me often in a position of being ashamed of myself when I wasn't naturally good at something, when I wasn't automatically smart at something, when I had to put in effort to do well. I would hide that because I would feel ashamed that it took me effort to do that. Interesting, right? Now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, you poor thing, my poor baby Steph, goodness. As I was saying that, I was like, my poor husband, because that's also the reason that I won't play golf. So I'm saying this podcast like, this is how you heal. Listen to me, because I've done it. I haven't done it all the way because I still refuse to play golf. I naturally feel like I'm good at most sports. If someone gives me any bat of any kind or a ball of any kind or any kind of whatever racket thing, I could hold my own playing. Like, not as a professional, of course, but if someone was like, hey, do you want to go play tennis with me? I would say yes, and I would go play, and I wouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to embarrass myself here, because I know I can figure it out. We grew up playing like cricket in the backyard and soccer in the backyard and whatever, except for golf. I went to the driving range with my husband. My body does not understand how to hit a golf ball. And that is a new experience for me. My body just seems to like get it. Except for golf, no fucking idea. My body does not agree with that motion of making whatever. And I've been to the to the driving range now multiple times, and I still have no idea. It doesn't get more comfortable. Even when I hit the ball okay-ish, it still feels fucking terrible. I will never play golf because I cannot stand the idea of standing on that first tee and having to hit the ball and everyone's watching me. To me, that is the most terrifying thing on the planet. It's so scary. It's so scary. Okay, so unhealed there still, will not play golf. Okay? No. Anyway, back to this rule. When I went to grad school, this rule of mine that I had to do really well automatically really sat heavy on my heart, because this was the one thing in my life that I wanted. Never have I had a goal that I have reached until this moment. I had wanted to be a therapist for so many years. I had just done a lot of hard shit to get to that point of going to grad school. So succeeding at grad school, and not just succeeding, like excelling in therapy, was very, very, very important to me. So when I was going to grad school, a lot of my time and effort and energy was spent on comparing myself to everybody else. I kept comparing myself to be like, am I clever enough to be here? Can I do this? Am I going to be really good at this? Naturally. Okay, no part of my brain was like, oh, I'm going to have to work hard. Obviously, I knew that. Obviously, I knew I was going to have to work hard. But there was a disconnect with this old rule that came in that like, you have to achieve. Never mind if you're having fun. Never mind like that you have to put in effort. No, just you have to achieve. Like, that's it, the end. And so as I was going in grad school, obviously now luckily it's grad school for therapy, so you're learning a lot about yourself in the process, and I figure out this rule and I notice it for the first time, and I'm like, hold on a second, this rule is deeply impacting my day-to-day life, and it's deeply impacting this dream that I have, and it's distracting me from getting the most out of this experience. And so I start to research, how can I help myself with this rule? And I come across exposure therapy, and I say to myself, okay, I'm going to force myself into situations that are so scary to me to think about. And I'm going to do that until it doesn't scare me anymore. Okay? So I go to school and I start to answer questions wrong on purpose. So not all the time, but once every day, I will answer it, not answer it wrong necessarily, because in therapy it's a little bit more, I guess, gray than that. But I will answer the question, but I will know that I'm going to get feedback like, okay, but you forgot about this, or what about this part? And I would have already thought about it. So for me as a person at that time, having an answer that was well formatted and well thought out, that covered all the bases, I loved doing that because I would get that affirmation that I'm looking for, that I'm achieving. So they would say, great job, you thought about everything. And then I would feel very worthy. But now I'm trying to unlearn that rule. I want to feel like I'm worthy no matter what I do. So I will have a really good answer, and then I will say half of the answer. And then someone else will say the rest. And then the teacher will be like, yes, that's the part you missed, to me. And I will feel like I want to be swallowed up by the earth. And I would just sit in that feeling. And I'd be like, okay, this sucks. I hate this. I feel stupid. I feel embarrassed. I really want to jump back in and say, okay, I already knew that. I want to explain myself, but I didn't. I was like, just sit here. This sucks, but just sit here. It's fine. Look how nothing happened. Look how no one's judging you. Look how not one single person gives a shit. Look how this is not a big deal at all. So that was step one. Then I started to be the first person to volunteer for role plays all the time. I would raise my hand no matter what. Even if I was like, I have no idea what to do, or this is so intimidating, or whatever, I would do it. And sometimes I would do it well, and I would be like, okay, cool, that's good to know. And other times they would be like, no, you missed this. Or like, actually, we don't do that, and here's why. And the more I did it, the more I volunteered, the less scary it became. And the more my brain switched focus from what's everybody thinking about me to just basically what am I learning from this? So I started then to volunteer to get answers because I wanted to learn. My entire focus switched from protecting myself from being wrong, needing to prove that I deserve to be there, needing to prove that I'm naturally smart and that I'm the best in the class, to genuinely learning as much as I could. And I cannot tell you what a massive difference that has made in my life. No part of me anymore cares about whether I'm the best at something. No part of me, except for fucking golf, I will not do that. No part of me in the areas of my life that are important feels like I have to be the best. I have no problem admitting when I don't know something. I have no problem learning. When I am around people who know more than me, it used to feel really intimidating. Now it's all, I just want to be there. I just want to always be surrounded by people who know more than me because I want to learn so badly. I love this new rule that I have, where my old rule is achievement is the most important. It's not about enjoyment and effort. My new rule is learning is good. Learn as much as you can. I love it so much. I love that I'm able to move into spaces, ask questions, share my opinion, volunteer to role play, put myself out there, because not knowing is not scary to me anymore. It's just exciting. Being confused used to be such a warning flag for me. Now confusion is my most favorite emotion because confusion means that I have the opportunity to learn something, and I fucking love learning. I love it. So bring on the confusion. So when it comes to unlearning the rules, this is how you do it. You try things that were previously off limits if they're safe and if they don't hurt anybody, okay? Just don't go be irresponsible out there and then say I said you could do it. No. But try some new things. See what happens. See that it's not actually that bad. For example, if you are used to going with the flow and letting everybody else make decisions for you, how about the next time someone's like, where do you want to go for dinner? You say the place you want to go. And if they're like, no, be like, well, I really want to go there. I think we should go there. And see what happens. See how you feel. Maybe you'll feel shit in the beginning, probably, because growth is hard. And I will tell you, at the beginning of my exposure therapy journey, it was horrible. It was so messy. And I only got it right at the beginning, like 25% of the time, because usually I would want to answer a question that I knew I didn't know the answer to, but I would be best guessing. And then I would stop myself because I would be like, nope, what if you're wrong? Don't do it. But the rest of the time I did it. And then I did it more and more and more, and it got easier and easier and easier. So another way that you can approach rules, if you don't want to go balls to the wall like I did and just jump right in, is you can start by taking some time to name the rule. Take some time to figure out, what are the rules that I live by? Think through everything. Think through your relationship, your home life, whether or not you're allowed to say how you feel, whether or not you're allowed to ask for help, whether or not you are allowed to be angry or sad or scared, whether or not you have to get up and greet your dad at the door. Think about everything. And after you name them, ask yourself, who does this rule benefit? And in what way? Answering that question, I think, is very important, because my answer for my rule would have been, it doesn't benefit anybody. Me having this intense pressure to achieve with no focus on whether or not I'm having fun or whether this even makes sense was not helping anybody, literally nobody. When I was a child, my dad would benefit from that because he would have 4 really smart children that he could talk about and show off, right? But that's not applicable anymore. So the rule doesn't matter anymore. So what the fuck am I doing? And after you do that, think about if you can figure out a new rule that's more applicable to your life. Something that's more aligned with what's important to you. Something that you think you want to achieve or you want to live by, or that you are inspired by in your life. Change the rule. Okay? The intention of figuring out these rules is not to find somebody to blame for them. It's not to go back into childhood and say, well, this is my parents' fault, or this is your fucking fault, dad or grandma or whatever. It's so that we can recognize that we didn't come up with them. And we can almost have the space to choose a little bit whether or not this is a rule we want to keep, or whether this is a rule that we feel like we can put down and let go of. I also want to add another caveat. And I feel a little bit anxious doing this one, but I do think that it's important. This also comes up a lot in family therapy, where people are raised with specific political beliefs. I've never lived in a country that has this tendency to align their identities with whether they're red or blue. It's very interesting to my South African brain, because in South Africa we have a gajillion political parties and one always wins. So you don't really identify with the party. They're the people that you vote into power that work for you, but you're not really like emotionally connected to them in any type of way. They're like civil servants, you know, they work for you and you can be annoyed at them as much as you want without it threatening anything. And I feel like in America, you don't have that freedom. So as a South African, I want to encourage you as an American to consider this piece and see whether you might not feel a little bit calmer as a human if you also applied this rule thing to your political life. Believe in whichever party you want to believe in. I just see that there is not just a preference for party in America. There is an entire identity connected to who you vote for. And the problem with that is somebody else is dictating how you feel about a lot of different things if you connect your identity to a person or a party so tightly that you lose your ability to choose for yourself. Think about the rules you have for yourself related to politics, and also think about who they benefit and in what way do they benefit that person or people, whatever. Think about that a little bit. And then think about what rule and what belief you truly hold true in your heart. And see if those rules that you have right now remain the same. Something to think about. Okay, so key takeaways today. You don't have to follow rules that you didn't choose. Okay? You have autonomy. You have sovereignty over your own life. You get to choose. Remember that. I want to invite you to reflect a little bit on those questions. What rules do you have? Who do they benefit and in what way? And what are some potential new rules that you could implement that work better with your life, that will make you happier and more content? Thank you so much for listening and spending time with me. As usual, I want to leave you with one quote that you can take with you and you can write down, whatever. Okay, are you ready? The old rules kept you safe. The new ones can set you free. Okay, the old rules kept you safe. The new ones can set you free. It was so nice to talk to you. I will see you again next week, Thursday. Welcome home.